What if I told you something as simple as texting is ruining your relationships with men? What if I also told you, with just a better understanding of how this works, not only can you avoid making this mistake, but you can actually use texting to make yourself more attractive to the men you're dating? If that sounds like information that you want to know, I'm glad. Because on today's show, we'll be discussing 5 texting mistakes that are keeping you single. That way you never get sabotaged by this device ever again. One of the first easy mistakes you can make when texting men. Both you and the man have your own separate, unique set of desires that you have in this relationship. And so one of your desires might be things like princess treatment. You might also have things like planning, let's say, for example, planning and scheduling dates with you, respect of your time, respect of your intelligence, respect of your individuality, right? Now, this man has his own set of individual desires. Girlfriend treatment, right? Availability. Both of you have your own unique set of desires, right? And there's nothing wrong with both of you having slightly different desires in your relationships because you're different individuals, okay? Now, here's the thing though. When you start getting into the habit of reminding texting, what you're attempting to do here is you're trying to turn each one of your individual desires and make them his individual desires, right? You want him to care about the things that you want and desire from this relationship. But here's the problem. What you're going to realize is this is a waste of your time, okay? And it's a waste of your time because you're never going to be able to remind a man enough to actually care about the things that you care about if he does not care about those things. And unfortunately, being a reminder texter will only lead you to trying to build a relationship out of a guy who's not interested in being in a relationship with you. So let me give you an example of how this turns out and manifests itself in a more realistic way in your relationship. So let's say, for the sake of example, you want this guy to ask you out on more frequent dates. And so because you want more frequent dates with this guy, you don't want to be seeing him once every month, you start doing things like saying, hey, we haven't seen each other in a week. We haven't, gone out somewhere in the last 2 weeks. Why don't we go somewhere tomorrow or the next day if you're free? And so you're thinking to yourself, oh, but I'm sending these texts just so that he can remember the fact that he hasn't seen me and that we need to go out on dates because I'm going to lose interest, Tomisin. I'm literally just helping him in this relationship and this talking stage that I don't lose interest, because if I lose interest, then it's done. I'm just reminding him so he knows what he has to do in order to keep my interest. But here's the problem. When you send him that reminder text, those men either end up completely ignoring it, right? Or their response to it is, okay, sure, you want to go out somewhere, I guess we can go out. They put the minimum amount of effort in, and even if they do see you, it's not because they desire to see you themselves, it's because you asked for it. But you want to know what happens after you ask for it and they give it to you the one time? They go back to doing exactly what they wanted to do in the first place. But the problem is, when you get into the habit of doing the reminding texting, you never stop, because it becomes a reoccurring cycle. So once you ask the first time for him to ask you out on a date, because he hasn't asked you out on a date in many weeks, and you get the date the first time, what happens the next time? You then realize, well, now it's been another 2 weeks since we've gone on a date, and then you ask him again to go on another date and you remind him again. And then this vicious cycle continues over and over and over, where every time you want something or need something in the relationship, you feel compelled to remind him about what's required of him, what you expect or what you need out of the relationship, in order to feel like he'll actually know about it and then do it. But that cycle becomes so vicious, and then you start becoming frustrated because the only way you're able to get something out of him in this relationship is by reminding him of what he needs to do or what he's supposed to be doing. And like in yesterday's show, in what we talked about, and what we talked about in sustainability, that's not a sustainable way to have a relationship with someone, where you as a woman have to constantly be reminding him of what your desires are, trying to force those to be what he cares about and what he wants also. And so you constantly get into the cycle of texting him to help make your desires known, instead of him actually wanting to know what your desires are and wanting to take action in the relationship because of how much he wants you. Number two, conflict resolution texting. You guys have your own set of issues, pain, and problems. Now, in the between here in your Venn diagram, you're going to have your compromises, okay, that are supposed to be happening to help both of you come to an understanding and some sort of resolution that works for both of us moving forward. We're also in the process of our conflict resolution. If someone has wronged the other person or someone feels wronged by the other person, we then both take accountability for our part and us making the other person feel that way or feel badly or feel upset or saddened or whatever it may be. And so you take accountability for what you did and think to yourselves, okay, how do we make sure that we don't have this same problem in our relationship in the future? And now, there's a very important process and a very unique process that goes on here. See, when you're trying to resolve conflict with another human being, especially in the heat of the moment where both parties are upset, it's very important that when you're receiving that information, because remember, I told you, he's going to discuss his problems and issues, you're going to discuss yours, you guys are going to come to an understanding. In the process of both of you having that conversation and coming to that understanding, you're gathering information and he's also giving you information. Now, this process of exchanging information so you can both understand each other better is very delicate. When you're giving that information out, there's a decoding and transcoding process going on in between you. So you're saying words, right? You're also giving body language, you're giving emotion, you have tone of voice, right? There's so much context being delivered out of you to him that he's taking in, seeing, and absorbing, transcoding and decoding, and then putting in his own words and through his own translation of life perspective to understand what you actually mean. I know that sounds very complex. That's because it is. And as you get more experience in relationships, you understand this process a little bit better. But here's the problem. See, when you start using texting as the avenue through which you're going to exchange information, mean I give information to you about how I feel, you give information to me about how you feel, we take accountability and we come to our conflict resolution. Remember, I told you, it's not just the words that you deliver. It's also your tone of voice. It's also your body language. It's also your eye contact or lack of eye contact. It's also the whole, your energy, right? All of the things that you deliver to someone when you're giving them information on how you feel, what your thoughts are, and what your perspective is. Now, this is great, but what's not great about it is when you're texting something, right? You're void of a lot of that context. Meaning all of that extra information that's supposed to come other than just the words is not being delivered to that human being that they can then transcode and decode and absorb properly. So what ends up happening in this process of transcoding and decoding information and exchanging information with each other is one party or the other begins to have a misunderstanding of what you're trying to say, what it means, or how you feel. And there becomes a large disconnect when you're delivering heaps and heaps of information to one another, and both parties are trying to transcode and decode this information, but they're lacking all of the other context of what your tone of voice is, what you actually mean, how you feel, the level of seriousness, right? How upset you are, right? And all of these things, all of this information that's missing means that the person receiving that information has a misunderstanding of what's actually being said. What also can happen a lot of the time is in the way that you deliver a message, you might mean it a particular way, and then someone might decode it in a way that feels offensive to them. Let's say you and a guy are in a relationship, and this guy sends you a message, sends you a text, I just don't feel like talking to anyone today. I've had a rough day and I just want to be by myself. You might be someone that's a little bit anxiously attached. And so when I send you a message like, hey, I just want to be by myself, I don't want to talk to anyone today, you feel slighted or offended by that because you're like, oh my God, are you saying that you don't like me? Are you saying that you don't love me? Are you saying you don't want to be with me or be around me? I'm supposed to be your peace. I'm supposed to be the person that you want to be with when I'm around or when you're unhappy. How can you say you don't want to speak to anyone, right? And he might send that message meaning I'm really exhausted and I'm mentally drained from the day I've had. I'm not upset at you. I'm just mentally exhausted with my day, and I'm trying to communicate that to you through text. But you see, very easily, depending on your perspective, depending on who you are, depending on your mind state, you can take a simple string of text very differently than someone intended to send it. But that in lies the problem. Conflict resolution is so difficult to have with someone through text. No matter how genuine you are or how genuine the man is, without all of that extra context in a relationship and in body language and in communication, it becomes very difficult to transcode and decode information that someone else is giving to you. Point number 3 is something that we all love to do. Get to know you texting. Let's imagine you're reading a Harry Potter book. The Harry Potter book is like 1,000 pages, right? And you're not really in the mood to read a whole thick Harry Potter book. You've heard that it's really good, but you just don't have the time or the patience to read this Harry Potter book. So instead of you reading this Harry Potter book, right, you have a friend who delivers to you all of the information in the Harry Potter book and tells you all of the key points. Now, your friend essentially summarizes all of the most important characters, all of the plot points, everything that goes on, and all of the different storylines that are going on in the book. And you're like, oh, great. Now I have a perfect understanding of Harry Potter, why everyone loves Harry Potter. Tell me in the chat if you love Harry Potter, why everyone's interested in it. And I get it now. Sounds like an interesting book. And so now you have the information of the Harry Potter book. But let's say, for the sake of argument, after you read this Harry Potter book, you go to a book club, which is talking about the Harry Potter book, okay? And all of these these members in the book club are like fans of Harry Potter, and they love part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've read all the parts of Harry Potter. And so they're talking to you about all these different plot points. They're talking to you about all these plot points, these themes, these storylines, these small little moments in the book. And they're talking about these points in the book, and they're so excited. They're like, oh, don't you remember when we were reading and then they were leading up and Harry and Hermione, is that her name? Hermione or Hermione, right? Hermione were going up until this point, and then in Hogwarts, they seen this person, and then Voldemort came and he ruined the whole thing. That was like one of the craziest times in Harry Potter. Oh my God, I remember literally where I was when I read that part in Harry Potter when Voldemort came and he ruined everything, and it was so crazy. And you're sitting there like, you know, I know what you guys are talking about, but I don't really feel what you guys are talking about. I'm not lost of what the plot is, what the themes are, what the storyline is, but I don't feel the same passion for the book that you all feel. And you're wondering why you don't feel that same passion. Because you know what happens in the book. You understand what happens in the book. But the thing about it is, the journey that you take when reading an entire 1,000 pages is going to take you through twists and turns, is going to take you through ups and downs, it's going to take you all around. So as you're experiencing that becomes ingrained in your memory. That becomes part of your experience with the Harry Potter book. And so it becomes more impactful to you when you're able to go through that journey in the weeds, experiencing all these little bumps and bruises throughout the road of the Harry Potter book. And that's actually what makes it so much more special to you, so much more impactful to you, that you go along that journey all the way through. So knowing the plot points and the storylines isn't really enough to make that book impactful to you. The actual experience of being there with those characters and living through all of those different moments is what makes it impactful to you. So now let's connect this to your relationships and why getting to know someone over text is very bad. See, when you're dating a guy, you want to be dating men, because remember, the men are supposed to be the masculine energy pursuing you. And if they're going to pursue you, they're going to have some good reason to. They're going to have to want something from you. They're going to have to desire you. They're going to have to be very attracted to you. And in order for them to have that level of attraction towards you that they want to pursue you, we want you to stand out in their mind, right? We want you to be memorable to them. We don't want you to seem like every other woman he's ever met in his entire life. We don't want you to seem like every other girl he swiped right on Tinder or Bumble or Hinge. Because then you get put into a sea of hundreds, if not thousands, of other women and you seem just like the rest. So even if you're an amazing person, even if you're so much better, so much more beautiful, so much more better of a personality, so much more funny, all of that good stuff, you can't stand out in that man's mind because the experience he's had with you isn't very impactful. Similar to this analogy here, you're just giving the plot points of your life to someone, but there's no actual experience tied to that information being shared. And so the entire experience in itself, in the process of you telling your life story and delivering information about you and you guys getting to know each other, is way less impactful for both of you. But by the time you deliver all your biographical information over text, and he's like, cool, yeah, now I know where you're born. Yeah, I know your life story. I know how many siblings you have. I know all the things that you went through. That's great. But it's not impactful, right? I didn't go on a journey with you. There's not an experience tied to that, right? As opposed to, I learn about you on a date where we decide to go mini golfing. And on this mini golf date, as we're talking to each other and getting to know each other, I break my putt. We're laughing about me breaking the putt, and then I had to go to the front desk and I had to tell them about how I broke the putt, and they tried to charge me $100, and I was arguing with them about the thing, and then I took the putt, then I came back and you were winning so much, and then we were talking about this, and then you broke your putt, and we were like literally dying laughing. And you see how, in the process of just delivering that same information, when it's tied to a moment and an experience, it becomes so much more impactful. And that subsequently makes it so much more memorable. And now you get an opportunity to stand out in that man's mind. Because as he gets to know you through the process of a whole journey and experience, instead of just getting to know the plot points and the key moments in your life, right? And so it doesn't really serve you to be doing any of this over text. We want to give men that full experience of you and what it's like to be with you and around you and get to know you. We want to give that to them in the ways that is the most impactful. That way, whenever they get that information, they say to themselves, wow, I love being around her. I feel like we have so much to talk about. I feel like we have so much to experience, so much to do. I feel like it's so much fun, so interesting, so stimulating. Because the other mistake that can happen here is by the time you finish delivering all of this information to someone over text, you have so much less to talk about with someone in person. So let's hop into number 4 here. Please don't ever Shakespeare text men. Some people will tell you, compliment men. Give them lots of nice compliments, compliment their t-shirt, compliment their pants, compliment their boxers, compliment their eyeballs. I'm not one of those people. Right? I don't think it's necessary for you to compliment men. Here's a mistake though, that a lot of you make even when you do compliment, all right? In this long paragraph of text, you're just like confessing how much you love him, your appreciation for him, your desire to be with him and be in a relationship with him. So you send these big long texts, all right, like Shakespeare. Oh, you're so amazing and the way you treat me, and this is so magical, and I feel so different around you, and all of this is amazing. It's like a fairy tale, and you send him this over text. Secretly, you're doing this because you actually want him to do what is essentially the same thing. And you want him also to send you that same text about how much he loves you, appreciates you, and desires you, right? You want him to mirror that, okay? That way you guys can be like this in love couple. You guys can be Shakespeare back and forth. You're Romeo, he's Juliet, okay? Or you're Juliet, he's Romeo. And it's like a really magical fantasy land where you guys can go back and forth telling each other how much you appreciate each other, love each other, and how amazing you guys feel. But here's the problem. Shakespeare texting does absolutely nothing. It's not impactful. It's not memorable. And even when you give compliments that you feel are meaningful, it's never as meaningful when you do it over text. So the times where you actually want to show appreciation for something that he's done, let's say for the sake of example, he took you on a really nice date and he surprised you with a gift and he just did something really romantic. And you give him all of your appreciation over text. Yeah, you gave him appreciation, but remember what I told you at the beginning about our interactions as human beings and how there's so much more context and information when you're having these discussions in person and how you're void of that over text message. When you start Shakespeare texting people, see, even when you are showing them genuine appreciation, it's way less impactful, way less memorable. And if it's way less impactful to me, I feel it less. And if it's way less impactful to me, especially if it's appreciation, right? I'm not making the connection between, doing that action and getting my appreciation from you. You're gonna find yourself Shakespeare texting with people at the beginning before you really know them. So then you also kind of communicate to the guys, well, you're Shakespeare texting me about how amazing I am, but you haven't really even met me. And the guys know that, right? They also know when you're worshiping the ground that they walk on as if they're the most amazing thing since sliced bread, but they also know they haven't really had that much experience with you for you to even be saying that. It feels very disingenuous. And so they don't take it as seriously and they don't take you as seriously because you're complimenting them something that they haven't even really shown you, okay? They're not gonna say that, but it feels very disingenuous, even though I know you're not trying to be disingenuous when you do that, right? Because I'm sure when you say this, you would love to hear this back from him. That's not an unnatural thing to do. But once again, like we talked about earlier, with the impact, it's never gonna be as impactful when you do this over the phone. Okay? In fact, it can kind of deliver the wrong message that you're either desperate or you're like you need him to be there, which is why you're doing all of this over text, right? Instead of saving these moments, right? Even the love and appreciation and the expression of how you feel for in person. Number 5, I'm not saying sharing and being honest about your feelings with someone that is your romantic partner is a bad thing. However, not every man that you're dating is invested in the future of your relationship. This is supposed to be an ear. So the men hear your problems, and in the process of them hearing your problems, you feel like that doesn't look like an ear, looks like a bee. Shush your mouths, okay? The men hear your problems, and you feel like, right, after they hear your problems, that equals when they hear your problems and they hear you trauma dump on them about all the things that you've been through, and I'm sure you've been through a lot, okay, we all have, they don't end up feeling closer to you. When you tell them your problems, you make yourself feel closer to him. He does not feel closer to you when you talk about your problems and he listens to your problems. What actually ends up happening is as he listens to your problems, you feel closer to him. When you feel closer to him, you end up being the one that is more invested in the relationship because now you've just shared very sensitive information, right? Information that's very close to your heart and emotional for you with this man. And now that you've shared that information with him, you feel like, oh, you're holding something very important to me inside of you and inside of your soul, inside of your mind. Now that you're holding this information within you, you now are more of an important person in my life because I haven't shared this information with a lot of people. I wouldn't tell most people this. I wouldn't tell a stranger this that I met on the street. Now that I feel so much more close to you, and I'm becoming more invested in you, and if I feel you pulling away from me, it's gonna bother me so much more. Simultaneously, because you're doing this over text, the men are never really receiving that from a standpoint of actually feeling and understanding where you're coming from. It's impossible to really convey a human emotion over text. I mean, obviously we try to with punctuation and emojis, but it's never going to be as impactful as actually seeing someone in real life. So even when you are telling that guy that you like all your problems or your issues and you're trauma dumping on him, it still is never as impactful to him as hearing you actually talk about those things one-on-one. It's never going to be like a heart-to-heart. if you guys know that terminology, right? A heart-to-heart just means where both of you are laying on the table things that are very close to your heart and emotional for you, right? You're having a heart-to-heart. Simultaneously, though, you've now made yourself feel more invested to someone because you've given them very sensitive information. And you've given that to them in a way where they're gonna be more likely to take it less serious, and they're also more likely to forget it because it's over text. Unfortunately, that's the reality of life. I can't speak to what you experience or don't experience because you're a woman and you're different. But if you want to know how men experience this texting stuff, they can tell you anything they want. They can talk to you about, oh, I build this and I build that and I feel close and I feel that. I am telling you as a man, men do not feel emotionally close to women they do not see in real life. And even the ones that will tell you that they're building an emotional connection with you, I guarantee you, the moment they see a woman in person and they start doing the exact same things with that woman that they're doing with you, but they're actually getting to be and experience her in person and do those things, they will immediately feel closer to that woman than they will with you.